Schofield Hope, and I am 79 years old. I am growing old and aging with a purpose. So I wish that for everybody in the room. I didn't know what kind of a title. I can't talk much, but I got some backup. What title to give it? I was talking to Annie Walpole, and she said, "Martha, do you have a title for it?" And I said, "All I can think of is aging with a purpose." So, and I don't want us to give up on growing old. Society says that we can't do this, and this after we are 65 years old. Well, I beg to differ. I am Martha, and I'm 79.
I know that's right.
When I think about it, I was thinking about Grandma Moses. Grandma Moses was 78 years old when she did her first painting on canvas. Toni Morrison was 62 years old when she received the Nobel Peace Prize. So we can do it, but we have to work together. We have to inspire each other. That getting old or growing old is a part of the process. There's so much we can do in our old age, and especially if we interact with our younger folks. So that's what we're looking for today. We have dynamite speakers, and then I'm going to shut up. We have dynamite speakers today. You'll learn something that you haven't heard before, and even if you have heard it before, it'll come in a different ring. And so you'll be able to understand that we come with challenges and issues. Yes, we do. Because my knees were hurting this morning, especially the left one. So I put a little bit of something on it, a little aspirin. I'm okay. I'm feeling good. So I'm going to turn it over to our mighty moderator, Kathy Thomas. She's my backup today.
Good morning, good morning. Let's give Miss Martha, 79 years young, a great big hand. Well, I tell you, I aspire to have the energy that Miss Martha has at 79. God bless you, Miss Martha. Aging with a purpose. So we're going to get started this morning. As she said, I'm Catherine Thomas from the Monroe County Youth Bureau. Happy to be able to step in for Miss Martha as her voice is a little weak this morning. So bear all mistakes for love as we step in and go through this day. Jackie Dozier, could you please come up this morning and give us an invocation? We know you always stay ready. Could you please come up? Give her a hand as she comes forward. Thank you so much, my sister.
I know what I'm behind.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right. What we're going to do this morning is the Lord's Prayer. And we can just do it in unison. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us grace and mercy this morning, for waking us up this morning and starting us all on our way. Bless those who were able to attend, and those who wanted to be here and could not be here, and those who are on their way. Give us grace this morning, the presenters, the speakers, everyone who put this event together this morning. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Let's give Sister Jackie a great big hand. Moving on, Mary Rose McBride is Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Lifespan of Greater Rochester Incorporated, Rochester, New York. McBride holds a bachelor's degree in mass communication from St. Bonaventure University. Lifespan is a regional nonprofit providing information, guidance, and services that help older adults take on the challenges and opportunities of longer life. Welcome, Mary Rose McBride.
First of all, I want to do a little plug for Lifespan. How many of you heard about Lifespan? Awesome, because that's been my job for the last 31 years. It's true, I'm aging in place in my chair. We provide services solely for older adults and caregivers. All of our 30-plus services are available in Monroe County, but we're also very regional now. We're out into the Finger Lakes counties, and we're even statewide with some of our services. And we talk a lot about aging, obviously, and longevity. So in the beginning, there were only young people, or very mostly young people in the world. Throughout most of human history, what do you think was the average lifespan? Just take guesses. 35, 27. Throughout most of human history, the average lifespan was 18 years. Whoa. Now, this is not to say that nobody lived longer than that, and people didn't live into their 30s, 40s, and 50s. But the average lifespan, think about it because of illness, childbirth, death, the average lifespan was only 18 years. In 1900, just 123 years ago, what was the average lifespan in 1900? Take a guess. 43, someone saw something. 40s? 47. Just 100 years ago, the average lifespan was 47 years old. Today, it's about 79, 78. It was reaching 80 until COVID, and then we've gone downhill in the last couple of years, unfortunately. But still, we are experiencing an age wave unlike anything that we've ever had before. You can see by this chart in 1900, and this goes all the way to 2060, the increase in the 65 and older population is the top line. The increase in the 85 and older population is the bottom line. Right now in 2023, there are about 56 million people 65 and older in our country. 56 million. In 7 years, by 2030, that number is going to be 72 million. So from 56 million today to 72 million in 7 years. And then it keeps growing until 2040 and 2060, when we reach almost 100 million people in this country that are 65 and older. It's truly incredible. It's truly historic. And why is this happening? Well, we do have that gain in life expectancy. People are living longer and living longer with chronic illnesses. Even cancer, in some cases, is becoming more of a chronic illness. But we also have the aging of about 76 million baby boomers. Baby boomers were born between 1946 and 1964. Their leading age of the boomers right now is 79 years, I think. And the bottom half of the boomers, they're 59 years old. Today in our country, I'm sure you've heard this before, 10,000 people are turning 65 every single day. 10,000 people are having their 65th birthday. So, how goes the country? How goes the world? How goes our little community? Here in Monroe County in 2015, for the first time in history, we had 20% of the population being 60 or older. In 2021, the last year I could find census data for, that number had already hit 24%. So think about it. In Monroe County, 1 in 4 people are 60 or older. 1 in 4. So that brings us, obviously, to a discussion that really had not happened throughout our history, and that's a discussion of ageism. Ageism, prejudice or discrimination solely based on a person's age. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. It's prejudice or discrimination solely based on a person's age. Martha Hope, I'm 65.
I hear you.
Pre-19th century, there really wasn't much ageism. Older people were revered, esteemed. They were authoritative. British men wore white wigs so that they would appear older and more authoritative. One gained status by appearing older. But then, post-19th century, something else happened. We became industrialized, and the trend shifted from being authoritative as an older adult to being a problem that there were older people. Became a problem rather than this being a natural process. 1968, Dr. Robert Butler coined the term ageism. It hadn't existed before 1968. And he likened it to racism and sexism, which of course were huge issues in the 1960s during the whole civil rights movement. But until then, no one had really talked about age. Lifespan, the organization I work for, was formed in 1971 because a group of nursing home administrators believed that older adults should have options to stay in their own homes rather than move from their homes right into a nursing home, because those were the only options before that time period. You moved from your home right to a nursing home. There were no supportive services you could bring in. So there are 4 types of ageism. We have our own internalized ageism, how we all think about aging and growing old ourselves. There's institutional ageism, everywhere. There's intentional ageism, and there's unintentional ageism. So let's talk about a few of those. We've all seen the birthday cards, right? They're horrible. 20 years ago, I was like, I want to start a line of anti-ageist birthday cards, because it's hard to even buy a birthday card for somebody who's 50 or 60 or turning 80. So this is one of them. We may be older, but we're still wonders of nature. Yeah, we wonder what the hell nature's doing to us. Great birthday card. Would you love to receive that one? Yeah. Okay. COVID exposed ageism in our country and throughout the world. The hashtag Boomer Remover started circulating on Twitter. Wasn't the discussion, well, COVID is killing a lot of older people, but they're older. They're going to die anyway. They're going to die soon. Who cares? That was part of the discussion. That was part of what people were thinking. Well, I'm 30. I don't care if somebody 80 gets COVID and dies. It's okay. And in fact, the majority of COVID deaths were in people 60 and older. But the lives of older adults were deemed less valuable than the lives of younger people. Ageism exists in healthcare. I've got some of my co-presenters here who are from healthcare. Ageism exists in healthcare. Costs $63 billion a year, they're estimating. It's responsible for 17 million cases of the 8 most expensive healthcare conditions every year among people 60 and older. Do you ever go to the doctor with somebody and perhaps your daughter's going with you, or your daughter going with your mom? The doctor talks to the younger person, not to the older person. Or you get the honeys and the dears. Ageism in the workplace. I am lucky that I work in a place where 50% of us are 60 and older. But ageism in the workplace in, 2018, said it resulted in $850 billion in gross domestic product. And that in 2018, ARP found that most companies didn't include ageism in their DEI discussions. But it's a fact, it's there. This is a cute little video we're going to play, just so you don't have to listen to me talk for 20 minutes. Cute. I don't know if you could all see that in the back. It's a little hard because it's small. But ageism, it's limiting. It's diminishing to the person and to our culture. It's ubiquitous because it's everywhere. It's isolating for the older person. And this is just really coming to light. It's actually physically and emotionally harmful to ourselves. And we'll talk about that. Internalized ageism, how we think about ageism ourselves, has consequences for our own health and happiness. Last fall, we brought Dr. Tracy Gendron to Rochester. She's the author of a new book called Ageism Unmasked. And she said, ageism causes poorer physical and mental health, social isolation, and loneliness, which are two different things, really. Financial insecurity, because maybe you can't get hired as that older worker. Decreased quality of life, and even premature death. Even premature death because of ageism. But people, Martha Hope, with positive attitudes about aging live on average 7.5 years longer than people with negative attitudes about aging. Wow. All right, think about that. Say it. People with positive attitudes about aging live on average 7.5 years longer than people with negative attitudes. That's incredible. That's incredible. So that's how we think about aging ourselves. That's how we internalize it. Anti-ageism does begin with the recognition that, hey, yes, aging brings both challenges and opportunities. And there's no denying, like Martha's knee or my back, that there are physical and sometimes mental and emotional changes with aging. And that's going to happen as long as we have more birthdays. But we want more birthdays, don't we?
Yes.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing to have more birthdays. And we need to acknowledge, Richard, I'm probably killing you because I'm walking around a lot. We need to acknowledge that we all want meaning and purpose in our lives, no matter how old we are. We all want and need engagement and fulfillment in our lives, no matter how old we are. We all want friends and fun, no matter how old we are. About 12 years ago, Lifespan opened a cafe, the Lily Cafe, at the Maplewood YMCA. It is a place where people go. We don't call it a senior center because at Lifespan we rarely use the word senior. It is a place where you find engagement, fulfillment, fun. They do karaoke, they have classes, they are family to each other. They are each other's support. That's what we need more of. Less bingo, more fun, more support. So we all want that, no matter what our age, and that's a starting point. To just acknowledge that is a starting point in anti-ageism. So, we talked a little about the history, how the older people used to be revered, but that changed. So there's a national movement to reframe how we think about, talk about, and act about aging. It's called Reframing Aging. And these are some of the tenets. So it used to be, aging is about old people. Think about it. You're aging from the minute you're born, right?
Right.
So aging instead, just about old people, it's a lifelong process. It's a lifelong process that we're aging. Okay, old people are frail, vulnerable, and dependent. Instead of saying that and thinking that, older people are experienced, knowledgeable, and a resource for other people, especially for younger generations, I think. Instead of, aging is an inevitable process of physical and cognitive decline, leading to being old. Instead of that, think, it's possible for all of us to live meaningful and purposeful later lives, participating in and contributing to the workplace, our community, and to our society at large. It's a reframing, it's a shift in how you think about it. There's also a movement, nationally and worldwide, and right here in Rochester, towards becoming age-friendly, towards age-friendly communities. Age-friendly communities have domains, where you look, there's the domains of age-friendly, where you look at how communities support transportation, housing, social participation, respect and inclusion, civic participation and employment, communication and information, community support in health services and in outdoor spaces and buildings. You look at all of those domains, and if you could make changes in those, you could make communities more age-friendly. And it's not just age-friendly for older adults, it's age-friendly for every age. So right here in our community, let's go one more slide. Rochester and the county are part of the age-friendly movement. We've been working on it for the last 3 years at least. And we put out a report last year, I lose track of time, creating a community for a lifetime, an action plan for an age-friendly, livable Rochester and Monroe County. The number one recommendation out of the 99 recommendations in that report is to combat ageism, because that's at the heart of everything. That's at the heart of everything. So soon, I've got it written, but we're still making a few changes to it. We're coming out with a new age-friendly communication style guide that will be distributed. There's one thing that bothers me more than anything, and that's when a young reporter goes out and does a story about a 63-year-old woman who maybe was in a car accident or whatever, and says, a 62-year-old elderly woman. What? Why did she have to put the word elderly in there? So a communication guide using non-ageist words, images, and tone. And these are some things that are age-friendly communication, age-friendly terminology. Again, I told you at Lifespan about 20 years ago, we stopped using the word senior as much as we could. We use older adult instead of old person. We use older person instead of elderly. My uncle called me about 20 years ago when he turned 65. He'd gotten a letter from Medicare, and the letter started out, now that you are elderly, and he called me, sitting at my desk at Lifespan, what is this letter? I am not elderly. I'm like, Uncle Frank, I didn't write the letter. It comes from the government. So I want to play one more little video for you. Hopefully it'll start. There's not a lot of sound with these videos, which is good because we only have this thing. Again, I hope you could see that in the back because it's a little small. Websites like Changing the Narrative, Next Avenue, Age On, Stop Ageism, and Old School are taking on ageism. You might want to visit them, see what resources they have. But they are places where you can go to reframe how you think about aging yourself and use them as resources when you're talking to other people. That is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you so much. And again, if you ever have a question about services for older adults and caregivers, please call us at Lifespan. Do you have questions?
I do. So I wanted to go back to your slide that says use or do not use those terms. And so I think we can't hear back.
Yeah, she wants to go back to.
I wanted to go back to the slide that says do use or do not use those terms. I think there's some cultural differences there because for me, when I say elderly, you know, in my era, right?
What is that?
Seniors.
I'm 65.
I'm 65. Okay. And so we spoke of our older people as elders or seniors.
Yes.
So I think there's, when you talk about language, I think there's sometimes cultural differences when we speak about identifying ourselves as African Americans and Black and brown people differently than what lifespan.
So, I'm going to talk about that. So she said that in the Black African American culture, you do use the word elder and senior. I'm talking about the word elderly. We use elder, we say elders at lifespan. We use that as a form of recognition. Elderly, though, I think in the last few decades has become a connotation of frail, dottery, can't take care of themselves, and that's the word that we object to. Elder is I think a word of respect, and I understand that, but the word elderly has a connotation that I think is not good for the anti-ageist movement. Just my thoughts.
So, yeah, and again, I think it's a cultural thing because for me, elderly does not represent being frail. And I can only speak for myself, but it does not, it just speaks, for me, it speaks to being older.
Okay, got it.
Mary Rose,
Martha.
I just wanted to interject right here. We're going to have table talk discussion, round table, during lunch and right after lunch. So if you could hold your questions, so everybody would be able to present on time. So any Toastmasters in the house? Jeffrey? No. But if we could do that and everybody get the opportunity, we'll put a table tent on the table so that you'll be able to go to that table and have a discussion with that presenter.
Cool. We're going to hold the questions until the table talk time.
Yeah, okay.
Because I'm over time, 26 minutes. I had 20, I had 26. So I want to thank you. Thank you for having me. And let's have a good day.
Thank you, Mary Rose. That was very, very informative for me. Very informative and enlightening as well. Next, we're going to have from the Mental Health, Social Isolation, and Loneliness, Dr. Elizabeth Santos. Elizabeth Santos, MPH, and Associate Professor of Psychiatry, Neurology, and Medicine at the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry. Dr. Santos is the clinical chief of the Division of Geriatric Mental Health and Memory Care. She does nursing home consultation and is the director of medical directors of a number of programs, including UofR Geriatric, Telepsychiatry, UR Memory Care, Older Adult Services.
I run a lot of services.
Yes, she does. Give her a hand.
I really want you guys to hear from the other presenters after me. And this topic, so I'm EJ, and this topic is just, it's too long for like 20 minutes, right? I mean, I will be here at a table if you have like separate questions about all of these things. But, you know, Martha and Dr. Medina-Walpole, who will be talking later, and I have been working together for the last like 3-4 years. You know, we were on a radio show and we were talking about loneliness and social isolation. And so she wanted me to talk about this topic, but I was like, well, geez, I'm trying to figure out how do I talk about it in this time. Probably not very well. So I'm gonna do my best. Just to give you some information about, well, what is loneliness? I think when Martha and I started talking about it, and I've gone to a bunch of the senior balls, which is great, and I hope to see most of you there this year in a couple weeks. You know, we talked about just being lonely, right? What does it mean to feel lonely? I'm sure all of us have felt lonely in some way, and we think we know what it means. It is subjective, right? You can't look at a person and say, oh yeah, you're lonely, right? Who knows what it is? It's an internal feeling, right? Where you feel like you're lacking social connections and feeling like you don't belong with valued relationships or groups, right? But that's different. That's your feeling, right? So that's different, as Mary Rose actually mentioned, from social isolation and depression. They're not the same thing. None of these three things, right? Because social isolation, they actually do measurements of this, right? It's like when you know, if you see what groups you're connected with, what networks you're in, right? You could be involved with lots of things. You could be going to places, right? You could be in a room full of people and still feel very lonely. right? It doesn't have anything to do with how many people are actually around you or surrounding you or whatever, right? Being lonely in a room full of people is the experience for lots of us, right? And it doesn't mean that necessarily you have depression. Now you may actually have depression, which is why you feel lonely or disconnected from people, but it can be completely separate, right? I mean, you might be fairly otherwise happy in your life, right? And things are going okay, and yet for some reason, you just don't feel that connection with people. But you can't tell that from the outside. It's completely subjective, right? And what's really interesting about it is how common it is. I mean, when you think about loneliness, you're like, I know what that is, right? When they did surveys before COVID, right? 1 in 3 people who were 50 to 80 at that time that they did the surveys have said they didn't have companionship. You know, and who knows what that means? Because you could, I mean, I know a lot of people who are married, right? So you could on paper have companionship, but are you actually with somebody? Are you partnered, right? I mean, that's not the same thing, right, as actually being married, right? Or in a relationship. You might be technically in a relationship, but do you feel companionship? Totally separate, right? So you can't look at like demographic data to find this out. And 43% of older adults, specifically, even over 80, right? So they just pulled everybody. This is before the pandemic. Said they were lonely. So then, here's the pandemic, and now 73% of older adults said they feel lonely, right? That they're profoundly lonely. Which is no surprise, right, to any of us. I'm gonna play a very small clip now from Project Unlonely, all right? I encourage you to go to this website. I hope we can hear them talking. Okay, put on 100. I might have to hold the mic.
More than what anybody can ever imagine. Y'all
hear it?
With a lot of courage. Now, all of you are beautiful. And I need you to feel good about yourself. We're going to start in this corner here. And I want you to just introduce yourself and tell me something good about you.
Well, my name is Teresa, and something good about me. I'm a good mother.
Beautiful. Come on with it. Give me some of you. Give me some of you.
My name is Yasmin Washington. I've been in the pimping and hoeing game since I was 14.
Well, give me a good.
Well, I'm loving, I'm caring, I'm very loyal until you prosper.
Okay. Talk to me back there. Share it with me.
Hi, my name is Tawana. I'm a beautiful black African American female. I'm loving.
Could you say that one more time?
I'm a beautiful black African American woman.
I love that.
I have a passion for people. I have 5 kids, and at the age 12, I was told I wasn't gonna be shit. Mom to nothing.
Come on.
Another ad.
Okay. Okay. We're good. All right. Now, ladies, let me share something with you. There was a time in my life when I didn't feel there was any good in me at all. And the reason for that is because I was sitting on that side where you guys are today, not so long ago. So during my many days behind bars, I had to go inside myself and find something good about me because I felt like trash.
So I want to play that little clip. Please go to this website if you want to see lots of movies about it. There's so much more. But I thought this part was very powerful. because you can't tell what people are feeling, right? This actually comes from the short film Sister Hearts. And it was listed under the category of like healing loneliness. And we all have different backgrounds. You can't tell by looking at people what their experience is. She goes on to talk about how lonely and isolated she was because of, whatever mistakes she made in her past. There are circumstances we don't know about, right? And how she is trying to help other people based on her experiences, right? And that's, I think, a lot of what us in this room want to do, right? Is help people. But in ourselves, you don't know what people are going through and how it will affect them later. I still take care, so I actively see patients in both memory care and the older adult services at UofR, which is a psychiatric clinic. And I talk to people in their 80s, even 90 years old, who are still scarred by all this stuff that happened in their past. They could be 7 years old, 14 years old, 24 years old. They haven't dealt with it, right? Or things kept them separate from people. The shame they feel, right, can keep you isolated from people. And that can lead to feeling lonely in a room, right? And so I just want people to be aware of ways that they can, reach out and do other things just like Martha inspires us all to do, right? This is, I know it's a busy slide, but this is mostly what I'm going to talk about. I think there's only like 2 slides after this. How loneliness affects us though, right? Because these are, you see, there's double arrows. I just want you to look at the main categories, right? Loneliness is in the middle of this because this is what we were looking at, right? This all comes from the Hope Lab, which I have a little slide at the end, which is helping older people engage. That's Dr. Van Orden's lab at the University of Rochester, where she studies social isolation and loneliness. And the reason there's double-sided arrows to all of these things is because loneliness affects all of those things. Just like ageism affects your health, right? So does loneliness, right? Your cognitive function, your physical health, your physical function. If you can't get up and, your mobility is compromised, right? It's hard to go to some place where, like say, if the elevator wasn't working, right? It's hard to get up all those stairs, right? It's hard when you can't drive, right? I talk to people all the time about that because I run a memory care program, right? There's some reasons you can't drive. Sometimes it's just from your eyes, right? I treat a lot of people with macular degeneration. Doesn't matter how old you are, you lose your sight, you're not driving, right? So it's not about the number of your age, right? But then all the other resources that come to bear, right? If you don't have social resources, you don't have family to drive you, right? Or money to pay for an Uber, right? How many times have I heard someone say, oh, why don't you just get an Uber? Well, do you know how to get one? Do you have a phone that you know how to use that's maybe not even just a flip phone, right? And then you need a credit card, you have to do there's a lot of steps, right? So when I hear a younger person say, well, why didn't you just Uber somewhere? I'm like, are you serious? Did you show them how to do it? One of the programs we have at our older adult services now for our patients is actually called COATS. It's connecting older adults to technology services, right? So we do some one-on-one helping people, and we're hoping to have some other classes that medical students volunteered to work with, right? It's a great program. Are you doing it? I see like smiling here. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah, you guys know about it. That's from my geriatric medicine colleagues. But it's been great, right? Helping people with whatever technology they have, just to get on my chart, right? Just to have a meeting with your doctor, right? How do you do that? Sometimes it doesn't work for any of us, right? It doesn't matter what age you are. If you are experiencing loneliness though, right? Are you actually doing the stuff that your doctor says you should be doing, right? Okay, so you gotta go to physical therapy, right? You gotta get up, you gotta move, you gotta go to the Lily Cafe, right? You gotta know the what. Are you gonna be able to do that? No, there's a lot of things that are preventing you from doing that, right? And if
you are actually depressed, right? Or very anxious, right? Maybe you're somebody who's always been very, it's hard for you to get out. You're afraid of a lot of people, right? You're being with people, you can't make those connections because you're afraid, right? Or what people will think about me. Oh, I couldn't get my hair done, whatever. There's so many things, right, that people think when their mental health is compromised, right? Are they gonna get help? Are they gonna tell anybody? Is anyone gonna notice, right? We always talk to the med students and our residents and fellows and any younger people. My daughter just started high school, you know, we're always talking about, look around, ask people how they're doing, right? Listen to them. Actually listening to people is a hard skill, right? And we talk about active listening, right? But just being with people where they're at, right? That can help a lot of these things heal, right? But you have to be aware, right, that these actually affect each other. So the problem with how our systems are designed right now, right, whatever system you're in, I mean, it's not just healthcare, is that we're all focused on whatever it is, you know, you're supposed to get paid to do, probably, right? Or, you know, I'm only supposed to help this person with their physical therapy, right? Or I'm only supposed to help this person with their blood pressure, or I'm only supposed, right? Well, if they can't afford their medicine, and if they can't get to the pharmacy, or if they can't even have the Zoom appointment with you, right, for them to tell you about the things, your blood pressure, forget it, it's not gonna happen, right? If they can't see to do a finger stick, or they don't even, you put one of those monitors on their arms, they don't have a smartphone to use it, right? They don't know what that means. If you don't ask about the other things, you're not gonna help them in any way. So that's how these things are all interrelated, right? And it's so important. And now you can see there are different things around the outside to talk about how we can help with different areas of this, like the technology platforms or home delivered meals, right? So we make sure that people are actually getting nutrition, group exercises. Even a lot of things we talk about with cognitive functioning, people are always asking me, that's a different talk with normal aging, right? There are things that are gonna slow down, right? I mean, as Mary said, you know, as soon as you're born, you're aging, right? So when I talk about like delirium, I say, you know, you could be 5 years old. People think I'm telling you now about delirium because you're 80 years old and you're a little more susceptible to it and it'll take you longer to heal. But I would tell somebody who's 25 years old about this too, right? So that you can see that there are things that affect you a little differently when you're older, but it's not that they don't affect other people. So this is for every age, but when you're older, you're a little bit more vulnerable to the problems that happen though, right? When you fall down the steps, you know, it's gonna be a little bit harder for you to get up and heal from that, right? So we want to make sure someone came in and put a rail in for you, right? Someone fixed your carpet. Somebody, you know, helped, you know, move that stuff out of the way so that you could actually get down the stairs. Okay? Oh, so I am very sorry. I should have made. Let's see. Let me go back. I can provide a list. This list. There's like 3 slides with ways you can help. You know, all the things around the side. I know it's a little bit small here, but I can provide a list of these things that you guys could take with you, or we can send to you, for where you could get help for the mental health piece. If you wanted to volunteer, there's lots of opportunities around. Learning about mindfulness. You'll see a lot of these things are things that we're going to talk about here with lifespan, you know, and Tai Chi, balance exercises, right? Healthy living courses. Oh, the other lifelong learning groups. which you can participate in, but I encourage a lot of my patients to teach. You guys have so much wisdom. You may not know that there's something you could actually teach somebody else, right? Other care management services, if you need other help and to learn about other support systems, social groups and support. There's actually, it's not underlined, it's under, the first thing under social groups and support is Silverline, right? I refer a lot of people to that. For people who aren't able to get out, where somebody calls you, they volunteer. Other older adults volunteer to call you, and it helps both sides, right? Feel like they're useful, you make a friend, and you don't have to drive anywhere. You do need a phone. That's basically it. Robotic pets. I love them because I'm allergic to lots of pets, and so I actually have one. I got one for my mom just so we could pet them. There's other national resources like from AARP. Mary Rose showed some videos from that, and connection planning resources as well. This is the website for the Helping Older People Engage program. So they actually, this is a research lab. And you can volunteer, you can recommend other people volunteer. They have lots of different projects, so I'm not highlighting just one. But they have projects also for caregivers, for older adults as well. So if you're not sure about anything, you can go to the website, or if you want to see if you can join a study, because they have some that they're actually going to start recruiting for that aren't even on the website. You can just call the phone number. They're very nice. I call them all the time. And this is, I wanted to show you one last film very quickly. And yeah. Just the sometimes people see you when you're lonely, and helping that other person feel less lonely helps you, right? Oh, I'll hope to see you at the tables.
Thank you. Very touching, very touching. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to have caregiving. Dina Johnson and Shanice Aluko. Shanice is a licensed marriage and family therapist at the University of Rochester Medical Center Department of Psychiatry. Her major interests are geared toward couple, marital, and family therapy, faith, spirituality, and psychotherapy, medial family therapy, Black African American family issues, and parenting hidden youth with behavior concerns and collaboration between primary care, mental health, and faith-based organizations. Dina Johnson is the founder, CEO, president of the Monroe County Family Coalition, a 501c3 community service organization. She's also a mental health provider at St. Joseph Neighborhood Center. Welcome both of these ladies at this time. Give them a hand. Thank you.
Well, welcome everyone. We talked about, my name is Dina Johnson. So I just finished up my marriage and family therapy over at University of Rochester, and mental health is my passion. However, I do have a passion for caregiving, and I think we're right in order and in sync of how it's laid out in the service today. I have a background in researching with caregivers, with cardiovascular disease and oncology, and all of that surface caregiving aspects of it. So having to talk to family members about their loved ones, being able to educate, support, provide support groups, and provide wealth and knowledge so people are not left alone. We do know in the Black and brown community that often happens because we say we have a lot of resources, but it's not always presented to us. I personally was a caregiver, still am a caregiver, and it can be really, really draining. We as caregivers can get lonely. We as caregivers can experience ageism. We can experience a lot of emotions, mental health needs. We don't get our physical health needs met because we want to make sure that we give back. So I will leave it there and give it to Shanice, and we'll be presenting. So thank you, Martha, for having us. I have to say one little thing. She must have heard us when we were talking about age, because I told her as long as I'm living, everybody has to know that I'm 21. But I do love that people age gracefully, and I love it when I see us age and people that are older than me, because I always have that thing of I want to be just like you when I get older. So I love it. I love older adults, my elders, and everyone that gave and paved us the way so we can be who we are and succeed as being older.
So, as already introduced, I am slightly new to Rochester, but I won't say fully new to Rochester, but now I'm calling Rochester home. So I'm excited to get involved and provide as much support as possible. So we wanted to start with a reflective question. So if you end up at our table, we're going to go a little bit more depth. So we wanted to start with a question for caregiving. What is your family's philosophy about caregiving, and how has it informed your own philosophy and expectations about caregiving? I thought this was a good start just to get us thinking about where did our thoughts come from about like what does caregiving even mean? How does our family impact what we believe about caregiving, what it looks like, what it should look like, what it shouldn't look like, how that looks different for different families from different cultures. Also, how our own individual beliefs about caregiving can be impacted from our family's beliefs, but also how we can adopt our own differences within that same family. So we're gonna save this question, but be thinking about it. All right.
I just want to add there, how many in this audience identify themselves as a caregiver? Wow, that is, I did not expect that. Because a lot of times we don't identify ourselves as caregivers. It's our loved ones. We're like, no, it's expected. It's my mom. She raised me, so I'm giving back. We don't always do that. So I'm really glad to hear that many people are acknowledging they are caregivers. And so I'll preface this with another question. How many people as caregivers get time for their self or time to make sure their physical health needs are met. And I knew no hands would be raised for that, because that's usually what happens. We wanted to take a moment to give some statistical data. So I'm going to start from the bottom up, only because I know for myself, I've done a lot of caregiving. I'm sure many in this audience are still caregiving, have done caregiving, but there's often unpaid caregiver are provided by 2.2 million family caregivers across New York State. That's valued at $39 billion a year. This actually came from AARP in March of 2023. So this is new, recent, that as a caregiver, you don't get paid if you're doing more than a full-time job, daily, 24/7. 10.4% of caregivers reported providing care or assistance to friends or family members with dementia or other cognitive impairment disorders. We also see that 1 in 3 caregivers, 31.3%, provided 20 or more hours per week of care, and over half, which is 53.8%, have given care or assistance for 24 months or more. So I just talked about that. We also have 2.2% of adults with post-high school education are caregivers, compared to 21.8% with high school education and 15.9% with less than high school education. 23.1% of whites are caregivers, compared to 24.3% of blacks and African Americans, 17.9% of Hispanic, and 10.2% of Asian Pacific Islander. And I don't want to bring in my previous role, Law Time Association, but we do know in a lot of our communities that the black and brown community, specifically the black community, is twice as likely to have more of these diseases, or more, providing more care. 1 in 4, 25% for women are caregivers compared to 1 in 5, which is 18.9% men. And then 24.4% of adults aged 45 to 64 years are caregivers compared to 18.8% of adults aged 65 years and older. And then 23.3% of adults reported providing care or assistance to a friend or family member in the past 30 days. And this number continues to increase. So as you see, the statistics are quite alarming, but in a way, kind of not new. And I'll look for caregiving and how can we change this. And I think part of this is changing what you do as a caregiver and making sure that you take care of yourself.
So we wanted to define caregiving. So for many different people, how we define caregiving is so different. And so one of the things that is probably universal for everyone is that it includes some kind of assistance with another person's social and other health needs. And so this might include daily tasks like feeding someone, bathing someone, dressing them, paying their bills, transporting them. All of these things can be time consuming. They can be energy consuming. They can be mentally consuming. I know depending on if there's a chronic illness involved or any kind of degenerative disease, there can also be impairments, mood, attitude, cognitive functioning, that then you can become the target when you're really trying to support someone, and now you're getting the aggression, irritability. So this person is navigating having a condition, and now you're the person trying to care for them. You're also secondarily getting some of the brunt of that, and that can be difficult to navigate. And so I think a part of this is also thinking about the identity of a caregiver. And so what are the language that we use for caregivers? Language we have here is like an advocate. So I think most people who identify as a caregiver, in some way you are an advocate for the person that you're providing care for. Maybe in some way they're unable to speak for themselves, or they're in a position where they previously would have been able to do so with full confidence. Maybe their condition or their situation has diminished some of their confidence in their ability to advocate for themselves. And so a caregiver may step in as an advocate. Additionally, a protector. Now, for some people who are providing care to a person who, in whatever their circumstance is that they need care, they may become a vulnerable person. And so they can become a target for anybody that wants to take advantage. Whether it is financial abuse or someone trying to take advantage of that person financially, physically, mentally, emotionally. And so sometimes the caregiver takes on the role as protector to be able to insulate that person. And then also companion. So there's, coming back to loneliness and having connection. Sometimes caregiver function maybe as the only person that this person will have contact with. Sometimes that's not the case. But it's the person, hopefully, that is compassionate and that is present. So I think all of these put together, there's so many other words that we can add to think about a caregiver. That's something else that I would love for you all to be thinking about. All right. So we wanted to also think about some common pairings when we think about caregivers. So generally speaking, most people, first thing that might come to mind is a parent and a child. So an adult parent, and then you have a baby, or that child will grow into maturation. Then we have parents who might become a caregiver for an adult child for whatever reason. Then we might have a spouse who becomes a caregiver for another spouse. We might have an adult child who becomes a caregiver for a parent. We might have a grandparent who becomes a caregiver for a grandchild, whether that grandchild is a young person or is an adult. Again, based on the circumstances. And then we have some grandchildren, whether they're young or they're an adult. They become caregivers for their grandparents. And so all of these variations of caregiving, there's so many nuances to them, and they don't all look the same. Where you might see an 8-year-old walking his or her grandmother or grandfather across the street, or helping them put one leg in each leg of their pants. And it might seem like, why is that child helping that? But that child might have adopted a role of caregiver in this form for this grandparent. In the same way you might see a grandparent taking care of their grandchildren, an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old, and you see someone who may be 75 years old, that person might have wanted to enjoy retirement, but in some way has adopted this role in their family, whether it was a surprise or something that they embraced, that now they become a caregiver in a season of their life where they might not have expected that. So there's going to be an adjustment.
I'll just add something there. I've been a caregiver in every aspect except for having to care for any grandchildren yet. And I want to go back to advocacy really quick. I know Elder Justice is here, but advocacy is huge. So as we talk about advocacy, companionship, and being there for your loved one and caregiving needs, my aunt who recently passed, it was probably about 5 years ago, I had to challenge a hospital. I was not a medical doctor, but I knew enough that it didn't make sense. So of course, me being Dina, I called the head of the department, the whole chief staff. My aunt was prescribed oxycodone for osteoarthritis. And I was like, that doesn't make sense because she's continually to hallucinate. She had dementia, and apparently I had just started taking on her care, so it was unbeknownst to me, and she didn't even know. And I even though I knew and worked in dementia, I knew that, okay, it sounds like my aunt has dementia, so I started talking to the doctors about all that. Oh yeah, we knew. But when it came to the medication, I said, this is not right, and this is going to stop today. So I called, the doctor challenged me on it, said, you're not going to get anywhere, and I said, okay, I understand you are the doctor, but I understand I have a lot of sense, and I did not just come into this world, so we are going to call a meeting to understand why she's getting such high-strung medication for osteoarthritis. I just don't understand that, and she's actually hallucinating and having delusions, and it was a lot of things going on. So we had the meeting, and that advocacy not only had the doctor being able to take a seat back and step down for a little bit, and I wasn't trying to really challenge that, but just knowing that as a parent, as a caregiver, if I wasn't there, she wouldn't have had no one, and who knows if she would have lived till she was 90 years old. So I was grateful that I was able to step in. So I only brought that up as we look at these slides for advocacy, companionship, and how you sometimes have to get told off. Being there for them is very crucial and important. So I just wanted to add that lens there. Family, culture, and expectations. This is one that's kind of really true to me too. So in family culture is a particular set of customs, morals, codes, and traditions shared by social groups of related people. So every family is unique, and It is oftentimes governed by a series of overt and covert rules and inform how the system functions. And so we have some examples of overt, of only family take care of family, only family take care of family, only family take care of family, which is true. Many people do not feel like anyone else should help. Anyone else should be a part of this. As your friends, as your neighbors, always encouraging people that can support you. And it doesn't always have to be family. Also, another example is unmarried daughter becomes caregiver conflict. So there's conflict with that, sorry. And then don't trust anyone. A lot of times in our culture, we don't trust another person. So we've been taking care of mom, we're not gonna allow another person to come over. And that could be a sibling, that could be family. A lot of times in caregiving aspects, you have siblings arguing of who's gonna take care of mom, who's gonna take care of that person. No, it's only me, I'm the older adult, I'm gonna be responsible. When working and bonding together could be very helpful. Expectations of compliance with family rules and norms without consideration of how these rules may impact individuals within the family may contribute to tension and conflict.
This section is actually really important. So we think about how families are so different. All the elements of culture really do impact these overt and covert rules. So one of the examples here of an overt rule is there's an expectation the youngest daughter or the unmarried daughter or the most wealthy son or the most wealthy daughter, whatever those rules are that are understood in that family, that's the person who becomes the caregiver. There's so many different examples, and I think if we examine all of our families, we can start to think about what are some of those rules that exist. And then there are the ones that are not directly spoken. One being like, we don't talk about feelings. So everybody learns to suppress what you're feeling and you just keep moving forward. And that's creating this culture of silence in your family where if you're struggling, you can't even communicate that you're struggling because there's a culture of silence. And we also think about don't stir the pot, don't cause conflict. If so-and-so says this, you do it. If you got a problem with it, you don't say anything. And so that, again, the culture of silence can then be extremely difficult for a caregiver because if you're advocating for someone else, but you're also not giving permission to advocate for yourself in that process, that's adding an additional emotional and mental burden into this process. And so as Dina mentioned at the end, all these, there's an expectation for compliance. Like you follow these rules that a family has adopted. And if you don't follow those rules, there's going to be hell to pay. And so what will happen is when anyone is not compliant, you start to see tension and conflict because someone is trying to disrupt the flow that our family has come to understand as how we do things. And so what we then see is a house divided against itself. What we know about a house divided against itself, it cannot stand. So we will see conflict, we will see brokenness, we will see chaos, we will see confusion. And what will also happen is the person who needs that care and support is oftentimes the person that will fall in the cracks because all the family members are struggling to be in agreement. The other part of it is the person who's expected to be the primary caregiver is not getting the support they need to actually be able to do that job.
How many people have experienced that? Where you don't get the support needed to help you do your job? Yeah, it's quite common.
Has anybody had any thoughts about your own family norms and cultures, value around caregiving? Has anything started to come up already? All right. So we want to put out a few roadblocks to caregiving. And this actually can apply to the caregiver or the one actually receiving care. So while some families can reorient how they function by prioritizing immediate concerns that the family's in need of, several families struggle with this transition. And so some of the roadblocks that present themselves, one being unresolved family issues. So if we have a situation, where now we have someone in need of care, but we have unresolved conflict between family members, it becomes extremely difficult to agree who does what, how much, when, and how long. And so if there's any kind of issues that have not necessarily been even confronted, if there's a family with a pattern of silence or a culture of silence, that means there's a lot of things happening below the surface, and the need for a caregiver to step up or step in, it can become explosive in a family. Additionally, unprocessed trauma. So what happens if the caregiver was traumatized by the person they have to care for? That is complex in many ways. What do you do with all of the emotions and memories that you've experienced at the hand of this person, but now you see them in a state that they're fragile? They may be fragile, or they're in need of your support. What about the opposite? The person that you have to receive or trust to care for you is the person that traumatized you. How do you wait for somebody to feed you when you don't know or trust that they'll actually do that? So now we see another layer of distress that comes in this component. A big one, family secrets. So we're talking about silence, and family secrets start to come to the surface when everyone gets silent about who's supposed to step in and help. We start hearing things about what happened 2 generations ago, or 1 generation ago, or has happened 4 generations ago. These patterns start to surface, and now we have families who will talk or won't talk about it. And again, the caregiver, whether this person was voluntold or volunteered, they are having to deal with the emotional brunt of this regulation and the struggle as happening in this family. You wonder?
No, this is very good. I'm looking at Ms. Martha. I think we're kind of up with our time, so I don't want to take over the time because I know we have some great speakers coming. But no, Shanice covered it. I think really quick we'll talk about signs and symptoms of caregiver stress and burnout. How many of you have been burned out as a caregiver? How many people have been stressed? How many people may have felt depressed but might not have called it depressed? Might have been lonely, might have got anxiety because, oh, it's just so much going on. So it's so much to that. And the burnout is real. I've heard caregivers, I've seen caregivers pass before their loved one that they're caring for because they did not get the help that they need. So it is real, it is serious. If you are a caregiver, I encourage you to do whatever you can to make sure you carve out time for yourself, to make sure you follow up on all appointments that's necessary, and make sure you have a buddy, someone that you can talk to, someone that you can do workouts with, someone that you can walk with, someone that you can just frustrate and vent to. Like, it is really real, and I encourage every caregiver. This is a talk I have with all caregivers, including myself sometimes. The patience, the compassion, and slowing down and making sure that you take time for yourself is important. And we'll be wrapping it up. I think we got one more slide.
So bullet points here for just for caregivers, building blocks for restorative caregiving. 1, develop a personal philosophy about caregiving. What do you believe about it? What are your values? Why is caregiving important to you? When you have a personal investment in the process of caregiving, your service is coming from your heart from passion, not out of obligation. Sometimes it's both, but which one is going to outweigh how you serve this person that you're providing care for? Embrace forgiveness and reconciliation. And this is connected to trauma. This is connected to unresolved conflict within a family. Making a decision to go through that process is going to be helpful in being able to provide effective care. Practicing healthy communication. This also includes setting boundaries. So saying, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed, I need help. Being able to communicate that. For whatever reason in the family culture, it might be difficult to do that. And so sometimes getting support to learn how to do that is essential. Connecting with supportive resources. So that could be support groups, that could be church family, that could be anyone that you have in your community, or sometimes even within your family, people that are actually aligned with you and they are getting in the dirt to be able to support you through that process. And the last one is renewing your mind. And this is really important because being burnt out, being stressed, a lot of what's consuming your thoughts can be exhaustion. It can be all the thoughts related to this role that you've taken on. And so renewing your mind is going to allow you every single day to adjust your thinking to the service that you're providing. Because it is a sacrifice, but it's also a service to someone who is depending on you to do it. In the same way, if there's anybody here who has caregivers providing care for them, also being aware of that. Like, how can I communicate to this person that is offering a service to me? And that will include activities that promote physical, mental, social, and spiritual wellness. We want to be respectful of time. If anybody wants the PowerPoint, there are actual tools in here to help you do each of these steps. So just let us know.
So much to share, but we're gonna get started. We still have some more dynamic speakers coming forward before we can get into our tabletop conversation. And this has been an awesome morning thus far. I want to thank our previous presenters. Give them a hand. Don't want to take anything from them. Caregiving. I also want to acknowledge the males in the house this morning. I said to one of the young men, I said, this is for men age 2. I don't know where they're at, but thank you for being with us this morning. So next we have Intergenerational Connections by Shanterra Mitchum. I was actually excited to see Shanterra presenting today because I know that her face is teen empowerment. So I'm like, okay, she got multiple tasks, multiple talents, so thank you. Shanterra Mitchum is the Director of Rochester Programs at the Center for Teen Empowerment. This youth organizing agency employs, trains, and empowers youth to create peace, equity, and justice in their communities and institutions. Shanterra, known as Shan, has over 15 years experience in youth and program development, including 5 years as a special education teacher and Black literature instructor in the Rochester City School District. Let us welcome Shanterra Mitchum.
All right, y'all. So, yeah, I'm not gonna use this mic. I don't think it's gonna help me at all. I think that my mouth is big enough for everybody to hear it. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, and I move a lot too. You all right with that? All right. So, really quickly, so I'm gonna be speaking specifically on intergenerational connections, and specifically on a project that Teen Empowerment did within our community over the last kind of 4 or 5 years we've been doing this project. But this is really something that's personal to me. But before we get started, I need you to do something for me. Are y'all willing to work with me today? Are you willing? Okay. All right. So on the count, I just want to get to know everybody in the room. So here's what I need. On the count of 3, I just want you to yell out your name as loud as possible. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. That's not good enough. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. All right. Now y'all know y'all too old to be screaming like that in this place, right? But there is a reservation that oftentimes comes with stepping outside of our comfort zones and doing something that we feel like we are either too old or too young to be doing. When I walked in, one of my sister friends from my church was like, "What are you doing here? You're not an elder." And I'm like, "Yes." But she's like, "But you love the people." And I was like, "I do love the people. I do. I love them." And this work is so important to me. In my role at Teen Empowerment, we focus on empowering young people to use their voices to advocate for change, peace, equity, and justice in their communities. However, when I came into my role as the director of the organization, I sat down and I had a meeting with one of the elders, Jackies, that are in the room. And it was like, well, how can y'all deal with young people without dealing with their families? Without bringing the adults in the room, without bringing the parents and the grandparents in the room. And so I have really pushed to shift that culture within our organization. We cannot empower young people without empowering their families as a whole. And because it comes from a very important place to me, I stole this quote from an article called "Why We Treat Our Black Elders Like Royalty." And it just kind of resonated with my spirit. It says, "Black elders are royalty in the Black community. We listen to their stories attentively, empathize with their experience, rejoice in their longevity, and treat them with kindness and respect because they've earned their seat at the table." That is something that it resonates with every part of my being. However, there has been a shift where we are not honoring our elders as we should be. This is my granny. You can't see the pictures. I wish it was a better lighting, but this is my grandmother. My grandmother raised me. And she took care of me. And there are different types of elder relationships, grandparent relationships. We have the fun-seeking grandparents. We have the distant grandparents. We have grandparents who have very formal relationships. My grandmother was the surrogate mother. And eventually she actually adopted myself and my sisters. And she was also the reservoir of knowledge. She was the wisdom keeper in the family. And so being able to have those connections, those dialogues with my grandmother is something that is really important to me. And something that I also want to pass down to my babies, because I have 3 babies now as well. I really didn't realize the importance, though, of having a connection with my grandmother beyond her taking care of me until I got older. I was sitting in a civil rights and the Reconstruction class, and I was like, wow, I don't know anything about my own history. I don't know about where my grandmother came from. I don't know why they moved to Rochester. I don't know any of that history. And so the year that I wanted to start to have these conversations, my grandmother passed away. And I realized that what passed away with her was a wealth of knowledge and history and experience that I will never be able to get from her. And so that really kind of got down on inside of me. And I was like, okay, everything from now on is learning history. It's really getting in touch. And I want to pass that on to the young people that I work with. I want to also emphasize that there is a difference between intergenerational and multi-generational. Multi-generational are people of different generations that are represented. Like in this room, there are multiple generations represented in this room. But this room is also an intergenerational room because people of different generations are interacting in meaningful ways. So me sitting around the living room with my son and my mother, that's a multi-generational moment. Intergenerational is us engaging in dialogues, doing activities together, building connections and building relationships. I also want to emphasize when we talk about intergenerational, it's not to the benefit of the elders in our community and not to the benefit of the young people. Both parties are important when it comes to building those relationships and those connections. All right, I'm moving fast because y'all got to get lunch. All right, so there is a generational gap, right? Priorities are different now, lifestyles are different, and culture has shifted. Technology has added some shifts to that. Mobility, our ability to be able to, travel and move across the country and move across the world, all of those things have shifted. And so what it creates is this generational gap in language, in communication, even in the way that, like for me, work is really important. I'm not waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning cooking breakfast for my family. It's not happening. I love my family dearly, but it's not happening. My grandma was up at 5 a.m. cooking. I had a hot breakfast. Every single morning I had a hot breakfast, right? So those things kind of shift and it creates this generational gap. But here are the benefits of fostering intergenerational connections. It breaks down age stereotypes, which we have heard over and over this morning. It helps to eliminate fear of the old and young and create seeds of compassion. That is a really important one. When I get to the part of talking about our project that we worked on, I'll tell you about how it started. It eliminates loneliness and isolationism. Children feel special. Adults get a second chance, and it strengthens communities. It strengthens communities. And there's a science to this, right? I'm not just up here talking to be talking. Studies show that in schools where older adults were a regular fixture, children had improved reading scores and fewer behavioral problems. I remember when I was growing up, I used to see the dads hanging out in the hallways. It was like this program where fathers would literally be in the hallways building connections with students. Older adults who volunteer with children burn 20% more calories per week, have fewer falls, and perform better on memory tests. Right? There's science to this. Something happens chemically within ourselves. Beneficial to persons with dementia. 97% of adult participants reported feeling happy, interested, loved, younger, and needed. Right? There's a science to having those intergenerational connections. The project that I'm going to be speaking about this morning is the Clarissa Uprooted Youth History Ambassadors Project. Has anybody heard of that in the room? Yes, I'm glad. Hopefully you've seen the documentary or been to the exhibit that we put together. One of the primary focuses of this project was building relationships. How it started. So the Clarissa Street Reunion Committee came and said, hey, y'all kids is showing up at our reunion at the end every year, and they is fighting, and that has to stop, right? And so Tina Department was like, okay, all right. So we need to engage young people so that they are not showing up at the let out and tearing stuff up, right? And so it started with us just having a performance, having young people deliver pieces and raps and songs, participate fully in the Clarissa Street reunion itself. In the year that we participated, nobody fought. There were no fights because young people were there to have accountability with their peers to say, hey, you're not going to do that because this is my event as well, right? So there was buy-in to that. But while we were preparing, young people was like, we don't know what Clarissa Street is. We don't know why it's important. We don't know the significance of it. Why does this even matter? I've never even been to a reunion. And so we were like, wait a minute. We got to have some conversations with the elders in our community. They have to be able to tell this history, to tell the narrative of what they experienced and what happened. And so we started to have these different dialogue sessions and having elders come in. They did these interviews. These interviews were documented and turned into an award-winning documentary. They went into the elders' homes. They sat down. They had these conversations. All of these things were filled. Elders felt so good about young people being able to come in and have a conversation with them when there was a level of fear about engaging with young people. They were on talk shows and radio shows together. This is a picture from them being on Evan Dawson, talking about the work that they were doing together. Now, like I said, this moment, this realization of we need to focus on intergenerational connections and relationships, it evolved into a documentary, which then evolved into an exhibit, one of the best exhibits that have ever been at the RIT City Art Space downtown. And it is continuing to grow. Young people started to speak out for change. They were like, why is this not being taught in our schools? Why are we not learning about the importance of Afro-Rochester within our schools and within our education system? So what did Tina Palmer do? Say, okay, let's work on developing a curriculum so that teachers, educators, and groups will have an opportunity to teach this history with their students and with their groups and teams. And this is young people that are pushing it. Whenever a young person was like, I'm talking to my elders and I'm upset about the fact that I don't know about what they've contributed to this city. And it just grew from there. The benefits from this project and intergenerational connections in general was that youth felt a sense of identity. One thing that we constantly say is the importance of identity, being able to identify where you come from, being able to identify and be connected to that. And they've been taught over and over that their history starts with slavery. And if you stand up for what you believe in, you're going to die, right? And they are taught that from the day they start school. That's what they learn about over and over. And so to hear about a community of elders who stood up for what they believe in, who thrived in the face of racism and discrimination, it empowered them, and they felt very connected and empowered by hearing their stories. Elders felt that they had a purpose and that they gave life. I used to hear it all the time. Like, I just walk in, I just get life. I feel life from interacting with the young people on a day-to-day process. Elders felt like they had a second chance to take control of their own narrative and not to have other people tell that narrative. A second chance to stand up and to fight for the preservation of the history of their community in Rochester, working alongside the young people. You felt like also like they had something to fight for. Both felt inspired, and it improved self-worth and mental well-being amongst all of the participants. One of the things that I think about oftentimes is I grew up, though I love my grandparents, I grew up very much in a household that was, speak when you're spoken to. We're not engaging in no conversation, stay in the child's place. But that doesn't foster intergenerational connections. Okay, so I want to be very clear about that, right? And it's very difficult because I'm like unlearning stuff even now as a parent. Like, if I would never tell my grandmother that she hurt my feelings. Never. I would never say it. But now my 10-year-old's like, Mom, what you said? It hurt my feelings. And now I'm taking the chance to be like, okay, well, talk me through, what did I say? Why did it hurt your feelings, right? Because I want to foster those relationships and those connections and help him to understand that his voice is as important as my voice in this household. And that what I'm doing is I'm doing it out of love. But in ways to engage in dialogue, presentness, Giving the other person your undivided attention. Y'all know we gotta be present, right? You have to be present in any conversation and any dialogue that you have. Unconditional positive regard, accepting others with a positive attitude. I go to a black church, and a lot of times when young people walk in, they dress different. They dress different. And some of the faces from the elders in the church be like, you know what I mean? Let's get them in. Let's get them in. Let's accept them positively, and then let's then help them grow in the way that, okay, let's love on you, right? Because those things change over time. So accepting individuals where they are, to be able to foster. Even when you don't understand, I know my grandma used to look at me like I was crazy. I don't understand what you want to do, right? But accept me and work with me and continue to provide that wisdom. Mutual equality, setting aside power dimensions and communicating in a way that values the contributions made by everyone. And I think that is very difficult because even in motherhood, I'm like, listen, I said what I said and it ain't gonna be different, right? But in order to foster positive intergenerational connections, we have to set aside our power dimensions and sit down and have these conversations. And listen, young people need this. And I think we think a lot of times like, oh, the elders will benefit from talking to the young people. Like, young people really need this in our community. Grandparents are in their 30s now. My sister is 39 and she is a grandmother of 2. Okay? And so those are the things that we have to start to think about. Grandparents are being younger and younger, so we need to have these conversations. We need to have these dialogues. And then civility, the ability to treat the other person with respect so that we can have a lasting, peaceful, and positive interaction. And I think that is really important no matter what generation you are communicating with. It is, because I'm old school, I grew up very old school, so I know that. It's in my head, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. I say it without even thinking about it. It's just ingrained in me. But we are in a generation and a time where that does not come second nature. That's not inbred and ingrained in. So we have to be able to be civil with one another and meet young people where they are, while young people are also meeting the elders in our community where they are as well. And so something that we all can do, dinner table conversations. I know people don't sit at the dinner table no more, but this is really important. I try to strive to sit at the dinner table with my kids and not sit in front of a television screen and eat. Having those conversations, talking about misconceptions of your generation, talking about how it even feels if somebody tells you you look good for your age. Having those things, like something that you learned in this year, because ageism, a part of ageism is the stereotype that you don't learn, you can't learn. So having these conversations breaks down those stereotypes and helps to foster relationships. Family history interviews. Young people need to know. They need to know where we came from. They need to know their history. They need to have an identity. And then mentorship and group discussions that are going to happen, like what's going to happen today, the table talk conversations that are going to happen today. All of those things are important. So within your organizations, opening up spaces within your churches, opening up spaces and within your homes, opening up spaces to intentionally engage in intergenerational conversations and connections. And that's it. And so if you want to connect with me, because I have to leave, Shan@teenempowerment.org is my email. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, because I know we got to get y'all some. Thank you. Thank you, Shan. It's a marathon.
You got cards, your lead cards?
Yes, I'll lead cards.
Lead cards, okay. Thank you so much for that overview. And I learned too, I didn't know how that documentary came to fruition, but it was very powerful. But then it all ties into the Clarissa Street reunion, because I remember when they went and turned up. And so now I know I can relate to the doc, and they were involved this year. So thanks for sharing that bit of history. Okay, we have 4 more before lunch. Next we're going to call up, we're going to talk the topic on social daycare, Angela Boyle. Angela, the passionate assistant director at Hub at Elite, with a deep-rooted desire to help others. She made a career shift from customer service to healthcare 4 years ago. Angela brings her invaluable experience and dedication to coordinating all activities and craft at the Hub, infusing creativity and excitement into every day at the Hub. Ms. Angela.
Hi. So I am going to talk a little bit about me for a second, and then I'll get into the hub. Like I said, I did make a shift from customer service over to healthcare. And about a year ago, I got approached by my now director, Yael, and she came to me and she was like, I've heard about you, we've talked about, we have some mutual contacts, and she was like, I have this project that I'm doing, I think you'd be really great for. And she was talking to me about, she wanted to have a party every day. She was like, that's what I want. That's my vision for this day program or this daycare that we're doing. She's like, I just want it to feel like you're coming to a party every single day, and I feel like you could help me with that. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I'm in on it. I love a party. I'm a big party planner. It's my favorite thing to do. I'm not gonna lie, my daughter's turning 3 next week, and we're having a unicorn fiesta. It's a 3-esta, so this gives you an idea. It's a party planner right here. It's really something I'm passionate about. I loved being with my family, and the idea that what she was telling me is like when she was canvassing for these people, because she started obviously the whole thing. She's telling me, like, she's talking to people, and these are older adults, and they're telling her like they don't ever leave their homes. This is just only, like, they really are looking forward to this opportunity to leave. And it's that true with me because my grandma had just come back from living in Florida, and she wasn't going anywhere except if I went to see her or brought her out see my daughter, and I was like, okay, I'm in. I bought into it, and I was like, I want to do this. And so now, what I spend my time with a lot of the time when I'm not with my daughter is I'm loving Pinterest forever. I look into I make all of the calendars. So every single day, the whole day is planned out. It's a 4-hour program, and we are open Monday through Friday. And so I look for activities, games, different crafts, and I look for specific ones that have some, attributes that are useful but fun. I try not to do trivial things, but sometimes, you just gotta fill some time. And it is something where we make the games that we do, try to make them more like mind teasers, engaging your mind, and just making sure people are staying alert and that they're enjoying themselves every day. In addition to that, the facility itself, we wanted you to walk in and not feel like this was a medical, facility. I'm walking into a doctor's office. So when you walk in, you're wanting to see warmth. We decorate with the different crafts that we've done. We have, a pool table room. We have different side rooms. We have a salon where we do your nails every day, try to give some pampering. We actually have a stylist come in twice a month right now where we, at no cost to our members, can get their hair washed, styled, cut, whatever they'd like, and we do that twice a month. As our engagement comes up, we're trying to hopefully move it to weekly, but again, just trying to make sure that people are coming in and they're feeling like this is a family environment and that they feel special, and this is a great way to spend their time and to socialize. In addition to that, we started doing outings. So we did a park outing where we had an ice cream truck come, and we did tie-dyeing as a group. We tried to also have, we had like a family picnic for like an end of summer family picnic. That was a couple weeks ago. We just did that. And we have fitness come in. We have an instructor come in twice a week to host fitness classes. And we have, in addition to like an exercise room that we have available to have our members be able to exercise and move their bodies in a safe environment. All of our staff are certified PCAs, so we want everyone to feel really safe sending their family, and if they're deciding for themselves to come and know that we're going to be able to take care of them. In addition, with all of those things, we work with members with managed long-term care. So if they already have those services, obviously that's great. But a lot of times, even if they have those services, we're able to assist in what you don't know about what you have available. So we do a little bit of case management with them. And if you don't have a service, because if you don't have managed long-term care, sometimes I'll get calls and go, I don't have insurance, I don't have this set up. And that doesn't matter. We encourage everyone to come because we can help you, and we're willing to help get whatever services that you need to be able to attend here, or even if we're not the end goal for you, but we still want to help and make sure that no one's losing out on a potential service opportunity that they have. It's very important to us. if you do start being with us, we have like an assessment when you first start, and we are able to track loneliness, which is kind of something that we have talked a lot about today. And we've seen almost every person that I've had, we have about 40 members, almost every single person within 6 months has had their loneliness scale reduced, like so to be less lonely in that time, which is just really great because it really shows what we're doing is working. We try to engage everyone and situate our rooms in a group, so everyone is, and we encourage conversations. When we have a new person, we give them a microphone. It's hard for me, I love microphones, but we give them and we have them say 10 fun facts, and we try to do like different conversation starters every day to make sure that we're all talking and socializing and not letting anyone feel like isolated in a group, because as you guys have said earlier, that happens. And so whenever we see it, we try to make sure the whole staff is working with people to avoid that. And so that's a big part of what we're doing. We're also trying to get out into the community more, and this is one of those things I'm hoping to continue, and making people aware that we're available and we want everyone to feel like they can come and enjoy themselves and be social in any way. I had one person come and he's like only out for meals. He would go into the quiet room with his computer because he just was like, I just don't want to be alone at home. But he would come and socialize for meals, and then he'd go sit, and that's totally fine. So it's not as if we try to make everyone feel welcome, even if you're not a talker. Come, we'll talk around you, I promise. And so it feels like we're doing a really great thing, and being a part of the community, and anyone in the county is available to come, whether you have insurance or not. So, my program.
Thank you so much. We'll call on from Advocating for Loved Ones in Nursing Homes, Mary Dell. Help me with the last name. White Pick. Okay. Mary Dell White. Okay. Mary Dell. Let's see. You're not? Okay. Let's welcome Mary Dell Whitehead.
Hi. I'm Mary Dell Whitepick, and I'm from Elder Justice Committee of Metro Justice. We are an advocacy organization, all volunteer. It started out as ALTY, A-L-T-Y, and it meant adding years to your life. So around 25 years ago or so, a group formed because they thought that people should, like we're talking today, be more active and have a more positive life as you age. It moved into, it became Elder Justice Committee about 15 years ago and joined Metro Justice. And at that point, the emphasis or the purpose is for working to improve the lives of elders no matter where they live, including nursing homes. When it started, there weren't assisted living facilities, so the emphasis has always been on nursing homes. But we also are interested in improving the lives of elders who live in the community, and which is what we're talking about today. It's interesting that one of the topics today was ageism, because I think the ultimate ageism is when someone goes to live in a nursing home. Then you're forgotten. People don't want to think about a nursing home. Nobody ever said, I want to go live in a nursing home. In fact, what people would say was, and my mother used to say this, why did you put me in a nursing home? I didn't put her in a nursing home. She went to live in a nursing home. And it was a choice that we made as a family. My mother was I used to think, and now she was 23 years older than me. And when she was in her 60s, after she retired, I used to think, boy, Mom is a really young 68-year-old. When my mother retired, she started going to the Y. She made new friends. She learned how to swim. She was always afraid of water. She learned how to swim. She learned how to play pool. She did line dancing. And when that became too strenuous, she switched to ballroom dancing. Then at 69, about 69, she had a stroke from during heart surgery. And she no longer was able to live on her own. She came to live with us. And, her life changed. So she lived with me for about 7 years, and I took advantage of day programming. I took advantage of first medical day programs, then the social day programs. We had someone come in to help her out a couple days a week. I worked, I had children. It was very stressful. I was the ultimate sandwich generation. And then when this was going back a number of years before there was a lot of help, at the point where she ran out of money, we had to switch to a nursing home because then she was Medicaid eligible. So I learned, why should we care about nursing homes? I always say that we are all just one serious illness, injury, or accident away from spending time in a nursing home. And that's either through, you may need to go there after an illness or an injury and have rehabilitation. Like my husband had to do that at 61 when he was hit by a car. A lot of people go in after knee surgery, hip surgery, and then they go home, hopefully. But other people need to go to a nursing home because their family members can't care for them. We talked about people living far away from their family members. There's nobody around, and this is where they go. Everybody wants to age in place, but the reality is there may be a time when the only option is nursing home care. It may be, as I said, you don't have any family members, you don't have a way to get that support in the house, or you've run out of money to pay for it. Because like the commercials show, everybody can get their home care paid for by Medicaid. That's not the case. There's a lot of us who are in that donut hole where we have to pay on our own and that money goes. And so then you may end up with the ultimate choice. So people don't think about nursing homes. They think when people go in them, they think of them as warehouses, and they're really full of very vibrant people. My mom was talking, thinking, communicating well. She could advocate for herself, and she liked doing all the activities that were offered to her. One of her favorite ones is going to happy hour and having her Jack Daniels, and I have a great picture of her doing that. In the U.S., 1.2 million people live in nursing homes. There's 15,000 nursing homes in the U.S. In New York State, about 111,000 people live in nursing homes, and we have about 620 nursing homes in the New York State area. And they're in there because they've got significant health, physical, and cognitive needs that can't be met, as I said, in another setting. So once you're in a nursing home, I'm going to talk about some of the things that we are concerned about as elder justice, and then I'll talk a little bit about advocacy. Once you're in a nursing home, you find the most important factor to your well-being is staffing levels. That's how many people are available to provide care. Do you know in a licensed daycare center, they are required to have one staff for every 5 children ages 18 months to 36 months. 1 to 5. Do you know in New York State there are no staffing regulations at this point? They're working on it, but it just says you have to have sufficient staff to care for residents. No numbers, except 1 RN for 8 hours a day. Like people don't get sick after 8 hours, right? So what does sufficient staffing look like? Well, do you know that in a lot of nursing homes, the ratios are about 1 to 10, 1 staff, 1 nurse or CNA, certified nursing assistant, for 10 people? And sometimes there's only 1 licensed practical nurse, LPN, for 40 people. And they have spent most of their time giving people medications and doing treatments. And they just go one person to the next, to the next, to the next. And then they also have to help with just providing care, like moving people from one place to another because there's not enough staff. So you can imagine, what's it like for someone who lives in a nursing home when there's not enough staff? Well, it means not being able to get out of bed for most of the day. It means not getting dressed for the day, not being able to use the toilet when you want to, putting your call bell on and waiting for an hour before someone comes to help you, and then putting you on that toilet and waiting another 30 minutes for someone to come back. It means sitting in your own waste for hours, not getting enough food or fluids to keep you healthy. There's a lot of dehydration in nursing homes. It's not getting your medicine on time. If you don't have enough staff to give medicine, you're going to have problems with that. It's not pretty, but that's what happens when there's not enough staff. So what is, COVID shed a light on what's going on in nursing homes. Governor Cuomo called COVID in a nursing home fire through dry grass. He thought that just because people were old, frail, and living in close quarters, the fire would go through and then he'd just all die. That's what he said. In Elder Justice Committee, we talked about in our, to the hearings on COVID in residential care settings, that the fire through dry grass was not COVID. It was not the nursing home. It was the inaction and inattention by our elected officials and all of us to nursing homes. And, nationally, 200,000 people died of COVID in nursing homes. And in New York State, that number was over 15,000. And it wasn't until the New York State Attorney General's report in January of 2021 that came out and showed that it was actually one of the major contributing factors to the deaths by COVID in nursing homes was staffing levels. So they found a relationship between staffing levels and deaths. And then finally, New York State took notice and enacted a minimum staffing requirement of 3.5 hours of care by each staff person for each resident per day. That's kind of an average number. On the table, the Elder Justice table over there, we list all the nursing homes in Monroe County. And I have some information on other counties. And it shows the rating system that Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services does. And you can look at that and see what the staffing levels are. Not the levels, but where each nursing home is ranked in terms of staffing levels and quality of care. And quality of care is associated with staffing levels. So that's why Elder Justice Committee is so involved in making sure that New York State and nationally, there hopefully will be a staffing level nationally, but in New York State that we make sure that happens. And we don't really think that 3.5 hours is sufficient, but it's a start. That is what we wanted, and most advocates around the country through research found that 4.1 hours of care per day is what is needed for quality care in nursing homes. But that was not what New York State finally put down in the law. And I think we think that was because they were influenced by the industry. So we now have laws that protect people in New York State, such as the staffing law and other laws that are holding nursing homes more accountable. But laws without teeth are meaningless. So we are now working to make sure that those laws are enforced. So we're working with our legislators and the governor to get those laws enforced adequately. The other thing we do at Elder Justice Committee is we help people learn to advocate for themselves. So I learned as being my mom's advocate when she was living in a nursing home, and before that when she was living with me. How to go about making sure she was given the care she needed, whether it was the medications, or the activity level, where the activities were going on, she wanted to be involved, and I made sure she got to those activities, or just routine care. But there's a lot of people who live in nursing homes that don't have anybody to stand up for them, to go in and make sure things are going well, to talk to the staff. And so what we want to do is help people learn how to advocate effectively for themselves. So if you become involved with Elder Justice Committee, you not only have a chance to work on the bigger issues at a state and federal level, but helping other people advocate for themselves. And like last year, we did a residents' rights forum in October, which is Residents' Rights Month. And we talked about that you go into a nursing home, you don't lose your civil rights. You have rights by law. And we talked about those rights, and we talked to people about how they can advocate for those rights. So those are some of the things we do. This year we're really emphasizing oversight of nursing homes because New York State Department of Health goes in and inspects nursing homes, takes looks at complaints, and oversees the nursing homes through those inspections and following up on complaints. But we feel that for years they've had very lax oversight, and so we've been meeting with the Department of Health and talking to our legislators to make sure that the Department of Health does its job of overseeing nursing homes. It's a really big job. So, just to be really quick, I just would like to invite anybody who's interested in working with us to improve how people are cared for in nursing homes, and we need to also look at assisted living facilities because they are licensed, but there's no regulations really, unless it's a Medicaid, for someone who's going through Medicaid. We collaborate with other advocates around the state and locally. Like I said, we talked to the Department of Health. We've met with them on a number of occasions. And also, I'd like to point out at the table, you will see that we're having a town hall on October 19th where we're inviting those people who want to speak out on their experiences to our elected officials to make sure that they're not forgetting about those folks that are out of sight. We don't want those folks who are out of sight to be out of mind. So that's what we're doing in October. So please join us in our advocacy. You can do as little or as much as you want and spread the word. Thank you.
What another great, awesome resource for our seniors in our community. All right, next we have Beth Bloom. Beth Bloom has been serving on the board of Rainbow Seniors, ROC in Corp for 2.5 years. She began her service as board president in December 2022. Rainbow Seniors Rock was founded in April 2019 at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic and after the collapse of the Alice at the same time, to provide outreach and connections to LGBTQIA+ older adults in the Rochester area.
My name is Beth Bloom, and I'm the board president of Rainbow Seniors Rock here in Rochester. We are an advocacy group for the LGBTQ community here in Monroe County. We provide social activities, primarily at this point, for older LGBTQ adults. We have a weekly luncheon where people can you hear me now? I feel like that guy in the TV commercial. We provide a weekly subsidized lunch every Tuesday, and we have different activities that happen during the week. We also work with groups like Lifespan to provide for our members the opportunity to talk with a social worker when needed. Now, recently, I went to the state town hall meeting on aging, where I'm sure many of you were also there. And until I got up and spoke, not one single person, including the state, talked about the LGBT community. And if you think that your community doesn't have, or you don't know anybody who you think is part of this community, you're wrong. That means people are hiding it because they don't feel safe. What we're trying to do, we were founded at the beginning of COVID when so many seniors, older adults were isolated. And the program has grown and grown and grown. I don't want to talk about all the different things we do because, having talked to people one-on-one, I think it's more interesting. So if you have questions, I can take them now or I can take them later.
We're going to do table topics.
Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Dr. Annette Medina-Walpole, Annie Medina-Walpole is a Paul H. Fine Professor of Medicine, Chief of the Division of Geriatrics and Aging at the inaugural Director of the University of Rochester Aging Institute. Her 25-year career as a geriatrician has focused on inspiring and educating health professionals of all levels and disciplines to promote local, regional, and national excellence in the care of older adults. Let us welcome, just before lunch, Miss Annie Medina-Walpole.
Let's try this. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so hi everyone. Hello. Well, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna shout. I'm Annie Medina-Walpole from the University of Rochester. I am delighted to be here. First, a big shout out to Martha Hope. Join me.
It's not working. It's hard to hear. I can barely hear it.
I'm just gonna hold it. I'll just hold it. Yeah, it's probably easier. I need my readers, I need the microphone. This is aging at its best. So it's my honor today to share my expertise as a geriatrician. So my focus is healthcare for older people. And I'm going to talk with you today about how you can age with vitality. So this is the fountain of youth, right? So for years, if it could be this easy, explorers have dreamt of a fountain of youth where you just go into these healing waters, you'd rejuvenate, and you'd come out young and not gray and not wrinkled. And it's not that easy. So there really isn't a way to turn back the clock, and I say yet. Because my colleagues at the University of Rochester are actually looking at the science behind longevity to see if they can come up with ways where we can actually slow the aging process itself. But in the meantime, we're aging, right? And I loved all the talks today. Kudos to everyone who spoke. I think we need to embrace aging, but I do think there are things that we can do to take charge of our life to ensure that we promote vitality in aging. So this is a curve. We like to talk about lifespan versus health span. So lifespan is how long an organism or a person lives. Health span is how long you live healthy. So if I surveyed the room, I bet all of you would say, I would rather live a healthy life than a long life. And if we look at the curve, we have health and quality of life, and we have birth to death. And most people follow maybe the gray or the blue or the red trajectory, where over time we would slowly decline. What we're trying to look at now is something we call squaring the curve. So rather than slowly declining, we would be at our best health to really almost the end of life, and then have a more rapid decline. And that really is what health span's about, and squaring the curve. So if there's things we can do to keep ourselves more healthy and avoid both functional and cognitive decline, that's what we'd like to do. So I love the definition of aging, the process of becoming older, and I can accept that, right? But look at the synonyms. Okay, so this is ageism: crumbling, declining, fading, fermenting, maturing. I guess that's cheese. Mellowing is something stale. Is anyone in this room stale? No. Waning, getting along, getting on. Senescent sounds like a cell, and wearing out. And so I thought, so I'm almost 60. I don't feel stale. I don't, I was telling Martha, there used to be something, when I'm an old lady, I shall wear purple. Well, I shall wear pink, right? And I think you have to embrace aging and the changes we're having. So what is aging? It's a normal process, and there are predictable changes we can see throughout our body. It begins at birth, and as a geriatrician, I care for those on the other side of the spectrum, the age spectrum. And what my basic science colleagues taught me is, Annie, aging begins at birth. You start aging at birth. And there's predictable changes. Physiologic reserve of organs decrease. So I tell my patients, the medicines you took at 40 or 50 You know what? Your kidneys and your liver are 30 years older. You may not need those medicines, or you may not need that dose. We have an increased risk for geriatric syndromes. So geriatric syndromes are things we see more commonly in older people, not necessarily a normal part of aging. Things like falls, depression, cognitive impairment or dementia, malnutrition, frailty, taking too many medicines. And then the number of chronic medications may increase, medical conditions may increase. So by the time you're 65, 80% of people, or 8 in 10 adults over age 65 have one chronic illness. 68% have 2 or more. And that doesn't mean you're not healthy or you're not successfully aging. I have a few chronic illnesses too. I mean, we all are going to have that as we age. And really what's happening now that there's advances in medicine where many diseases are more chronic long-term medical conditions. It's things we just live with. We also see atypical presentation of conditions is common. So older people, if they have an infection, they may not present with a fever, which what we would think would be classic. They may have a fall or confusion. And then ageism, we had a whole talk on ageism. That's something else to really be aware of, and I would say call it out when it happens. So I have been told, oh, you're too young to be a doctor on many, many occasions. I've also been told by my children, Mom, you're too old to wear that. Mom, this is not the store that you can shop in, right? So I think it goes both ways, and we have to call it out when we see it, call out your children. So why did we choose vitality in aging? Why is that the term I'm going with? So there's many terms that have been used. Healthy aging makes us think of this ideal state of freedom from illness or medical conditions, and that's not a reality. In Canada, there's active aging. In Europe, active and healthy aging. And then there's this successful aging. So successful aging is a paradigm, it's a model, there's a book, it was published in 1998 by Jack Rowe and Robert Kahn. And this was the intersection of avoiding disease, engaging with life, and maintaining high cognitive and physical function. Sounds like the nirvana, right? But there's few people who meet all 3 criteria. And there's many critiques. So there's a stigma then associated with not being successful. The need to acknowledge outside forces, the environment, our lifestyle, finances, safety, education, culture, all of those things can influence how we age. And finally, there's chronic diseases. So physiological changes, things like cancer, things like dementia, they can make aging difficult for many. But older age can also be a very positive and generative time. So we built the University of Rochester Aging Institute, and our motto is promote vitality in aging through collaboration, discovery, and innovation. And really, what we did, or what I have done through the last 5 or 6 years, is bring together all facets of geriatrics, gerontology, everybody interested in aging across our campus. And it's not just at the medical center. But our pillars are vital discovery, representing research, vital care, representing patient care and education, and vital living is really engaging our community and representing the older adults themselves. And so we are committed to promoting health, independence, engagement, and really enabling all of us to live our best lives. So this is still under development. I have lots of great ideas. I don't have a lot of funding. And so I'm working on these things, but having the opportunity to collaborate with people like Martha Hope and Senior Expressions and the Alzheimer's Association and Lifespan and my new friends at Elder Justice, it's really wonderful. So the university motto is Meliora or Ever Better. And our belief as geriatric health providers, educators, researchers, is that Meliora shouldn't end at 65, 75, 85, gather and say 105. Aging should not be viewed as a time of decline, but instead a period of life where people can pursue new interests and opportunities. So here we have the very amazing Martha Hope. And when they wanted to do an article in Rochester Medicine Magazine on the Aging Institute, and they said, well, who do you think of when you think of someone who ages with vitality? And we have plenty of older faculty members, and that's not who I thought of. I thought of Martha Hope. And Martha graciously agreed to be on the cover, and I just love this photo of her, Aging Reimagined, a new view of old age. And so she's amazing, right? And so we can celebrate that. So I would say aging is an individual process, and there's really no one size fits all. Each of us is aging individually, and I'm going to show you a series of photos that as a reminder of the range of health and function that we can experience with aging. Okay, so if you can do this, raise your hand, right? Okay, good. So I mistakenly, at a party a couple years ago, thought I could just pop down in the splits, right? And guess what? I tore my hamstring. So I do not recommend this. Okay, but is this aging with vitality? All right? This man is the oldest person to ever run a marathon at age 100. Is this aging with vitality? This is a 100-year-old woman from Okinawa, Japan. She spends her time gardening and walking to stay active. Is this aging with vitality? How about this gentleman? So he probably has some chronic conditions, judging from his medications, yet he's managing his own meds. He looks like he's in comfortable surroundings, appears content, focused. Is this aging with vitality? These three residents are from an assisted living in Germany who met there and share a love of music. They are ages 86 to 95. How about this? Aging with vitality. And these photos just make me smile. So this man's in a wheelchair level, so he's functionally impaired likely, but he appears connected. He's out in the community, perhaps with a caregiver. Is this aging with vitality? And then the two below just make me embrace wrinkles, right? And just the smiles, it just makes you happy to see those photos. So as you can see, each of these photos illustrates the variation in how we age. And I really think aging and vitality is based on the individual, and everybody can do it, but there are some secrets. So the American Geriatric Society, which is my national professional organization, says they went with healthy aging. Promote health, prevent injury, manage chronic conditions. So this is the mantra: physical activity, balanced nutrition and weight, avoiding tobacco, drugs, excess alcohol, sleep, managing stress. All healthy lifestyle behaviors. And when I look through the literature for this talk and talk to my colleagues, this is what it comes down to. All across the board is healthy lifestyle behaviors. And they're hard, right? Because not one of us does everything on this list on a regular basis. So I'm going to show you some evidence. So this is from a cardiovascular health study. It looked at risk factors in over 5,000 adults aged 65 and older in 4 United States communities over 25 years. So again, don't shoot the messenger. I didn't designate healthy, unhealthy. I'm sure we all have some in each category, right? So never smoking versus smoking, 1 to 7 drinks versus 14, exercising a lot versus not much, how far you can walk. I want you to notice the social network and social support. We've talked a lot about loneliness and connectedness, also key. But healthy lifestyle behaviors in this study reduce the period of disability towards the end of life. So remember, squaring the curve. Healthy lifestyle behaviors can help you square that curve so you can live a healthier life longer. Who's heard of the blue zones? Okay, so there's a new Netflix documentary, apparently. I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list. So I want to tell you about these because I think it's really interesting. These are areas around the world that have low levels of chronic disease, high levels of mental and physical function, and a long life expectancy. And the concept grew out of the demographic work, which originally identified Sardinia, Italy, as the region with the highest number of male centenarians, or men who lived to be 100. So a National Geographic fellow by the name of Dan Butner, who's probably now a billionaire because it's all copyrighted now, he found other longevity hotspots and he dubbed them the blue zones. And so these now reflect the lifestyle and environment of the world's longest lived people. So if we look at this as an example, these are the hotspots. Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Icaria, Greece, and Loma Linda, California. All right? So in Greece, I always wanted to go there, but now you want to live there, right? Highest percentage of 90-year-olds on the planet, 1 in 3 reach 90. That's pretty incredible. 20% less cancer, less heart disease, almost no dementia. So what makes them so special? So his research team found that the blue zones share 9 specific lifestyle habits. They call them the Power 9, centered around 4 themes. And I'm going to take you through these. Moving naturally, having the right outlook, eating wisely, and then belonging. So again, this isn't rocket science, but it's hard to accomplish, and especially hard to accomplish for a whole city or a whole community. These are replication sites across the country, and I recently gave a talk in Florida. Naples, Florida is a replication site. And so this is really a culture change in your entire community or your entire city. This is not just about older people. This starts with children, it starts in daycares, it's about healthy eating, it's about the entire community taking part. And so I encourage you to watch the Netflix, to think about this, to think about these principles, and could Rochester become a blue zone, right? So we have a lot, we talked about the AARP, the 8 domains of aging well, you know, all of these are components of it. So is this our future? So healthy lifestyle behaviors, exercise versus extra fries. All right, so I am a moderation person, right? I try to exercise, but I do like the extra fries. And I think it's hard to be one way or the other. And again, there's no judgment. We're not healthy or unhealthy. Life is about a balance. So the first thing is attitude. So this is my mother-in-law. We lost her last year at age 90. She was 88 at this point, going to an ABBA concert with her friends. So I think the very first key to embracing aging is to check your attitude. Accept change, right? Don't let ageism in. We can sit around all day thinking about what doesn't work, what doesn't. My husband just texted me, he was golfing. His back has been hurting, so he's golfing, taking ibuprofen, and he just said, I can't do it anymore. I said, well, you know, like things are hurting, and we're 60. But I think we have to focus on, I think it's important that we're out there, that he is out golfing. Address your mood, address your mental health. Think about things that make you happy. This is a study from Harvard that showed that higher optimism is associated with a longer lifespan and a greater likelihood of achieving exceptional longevity overall. And when I think about someone with optimism, I'm going to shout out Martha again, but really, really optimistic. Preventing cognitive decline. So we had a talk from the Alzheimer's Association. This is very hard. The risk of dementia involves many things: genes, age, chronic disease, but also lifestyle. And when we see someone in our geriatric assessment clinic who has cognitive decline or dementia, we talk about reducing risk. And look, it's all those same things. Healthy diet, physically active, social activity, challenging your brain. So again, over and over, I keep finding this. So use your brain. Lifelong, meaningful work and intellectual pursuits, enriching social activities. The fact that you're all here is huge. Sleeping well is also really important. Lack of sleep or poor sleep quality can impair alertness, concentration, memory. And sometimes people aren't sleeping well, and then they come to our clinic and we're testing their memory, right? So it can really make a difference. And then socialization, opportunities for communication, critical thought, creativity, emotional expression. We know that people who isolate themselves are at greater risk of developing depression, but also dementia. So let's talk a bit about physical activity. This is the most effective strategy to prevent loss of function. One of my patients once told me, if I rest, I rust. And I thought, what a beautiful thing to say, right? So that was his way of maintaining activity. The blue zones tell us to move naturally. The woman we saw in the picture about aging with vitality, her movement naturally is gardening and walking. And so the blue zones aren't saying get out there and exercise like the CDC tells us. We're going to talk about that too. They say to move naturally. Take a walk. Do what you do on a day-to-day basis, but keep moving. Exercise does have benefits though. Reduces risk of death. So there was a study of over 40,000 women who went through menopause over 7 years. Those who exercised regularly were 20% less to die than those who were more sedentary. That's huge, right? As I look at a sea of women, okay? So I think it's important that we are moving. It can help manage and treat chronic illness, can improve our strength and mood, cardiovascular health, avoiding that downward spiral of feeling weak. So then we are more sedentary, then we become weaker. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it also reduces the risk of frailty. We're going to talk about what it means to be frail. So what makes it hard, right? Why is it so hard to get up and exercise? So there are some changes with aging that happen. I'm going to teach you about sarcopenia. And there's also frailty. So sarcopenia, the Greek word flesh, penia poverty, it is the loss of muscle mass and strength that occurs with aging. So when you look in the mirror as you age, you can see things just aren't quite as tight. This is a normal consequence of aging, right? But sarcopenia can also cause disability and frailty. So things like proper nutrition, protein, physical activity are all really important. So this starts in your 30s. We are not escaping it. Accelerates around 75. Weakness, decreased stamina, and physical performance. But you can overcome some of this. So this is what it looks like. You have a young, healthy thigh muscle. You have a sarcopenic thigh muscle. So just looking at that, the muscle is the lighter gray all around. The white is the bone. But you can see how there is less muscle. And then that dark area is all the fat around your thigh, sadly, right? Sarcopenia is a major cause of disability and frailty. So the more we can exercise those muscles is important. So frailty is a physiologic syndrome. It's a dysregulation of multiple things, from the cellular level to the organ level to the whole body level. The risk of frailty increases with age. 1 in 25 people between 65 and 74. 1 in 4 over age 85. So the way I think about frailty is vulnerability. So we have functional ability, someone who's more independent, someone who's more dependent. And we have a minor illness in the green. Maybe it's a bladder infection. You see, I don't have my mouse, but you see a small decrease in the function and then a pretty rapid return to the same level of function. In someone who is more frail or more dependent, the same minor illness, you have a bigger decrease in their function. It takes much longer to recover, and they may not recover to that same level. And when that happens over and over, that is that spiral downward, and people continue to lose function. So frailty has criteria, all right? So these are things: weight loss, unintentional 10 pounds, just feeling exhausted. Everything is an effort. Time to walk 15 feet takes longer. Household activities, trouble standing without assist, or reduced grip strength. So, in full disclosure, we moved my parents here a year ago because my father has dementia. And I never ever thought of my father as frail till I saw him after the pandemic. And he meets every one of these criteria, which is really sad to see. And so as a geriatrician, I walked in and there was a huge difference after the pandemic. But all of you can see this too. So this is a woman, this is actually my great aunt, but this is a woman at 82 years of age, and she looks pretty good, right? This is her 4 years later. So a picture is worth 1,000 words, okay? This is after developing chronic health conditions and frailty. So what do you see here? All right, anyone want to shout anything out? What do you see?
She stooped over.
She stooped over, so her back is kyphotic, as we would say. What else?
She's holding on to
Pain. Pain? Yeah, so she looks, look at her face. She looks like she's in pain. She's furniture walking. We don't like furniture walking, right? And if you really look, her arms, her hands are arthritic. She's got on one shoe, right, which makes me worry about her cognition because we know it's not safe to walk with only one shoe on. And then back in that corner, that's the wheelchair she's supposed to be using in her home. So again, this picture, if I said fit or frail, you'd all say frail. So we see it, right? And we can make a difference when we see this in our loved ones. We can say, okay, it's time to intervene if we can. This picture also illustrates what we can learn from seeing our patients at home, whether in person or even telehealth, right? Because people can put on a good talk and a good walk when they come to the office. It's very different than seeing someone in their home. So, frailty and death, all right? So this is an article that looked at 273 older people admitted to a general hospital unit in South Wales, and they followed these people for 5 years. These are called survival curves, right? So the people that were fit had much longer survival than those that were frail. And if the people developed delirium or confusion in the hospital, their prognosis was even worse, especially for those that were frail. Frailty, social isolation, and death. This study came out just before the pandemic, or just during the pandemic, so we know it was before that. Frailty, social isolation, and death are all linked. Frail older adults were at increased risk of death, and the highest risk was those who were frail combined with loneliness or social isolation. So these are things, this is before the pandemic, right? So we have to learn from this because people were socially isolated. And so that's why organizations that are here today bringing people together for socialization is so important. So how do you beat it? You identify it early, right? So with my father, I'm trying to get him to move, but he needs help moving or he falls, right? So this is not easy. Eating well, right? Keeping an active mind and optimistic attitude, getting him away from the Yankees game and starting to think about doing things, as much as he can to use his brain and being active most days of the week. Every little bit helps at any age. Physical activity, how much do you need? This is the CDC, all right? 150 minutes a week and 2 days of muscle strengthening. I don't have time for that. I say that, I probably do, but I don't make time for that, right? But this is for every age, right? So older people don't get a pass, but I'm giving you a pass, okay? So this is what the CDC says. I say if it's too much, be as active as you can. But think about things that maintain or improve balance and flexibility. We don't want you to fall. So it's really the core activities, what this gentleman is doing are really important, a strong core. So those yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates, you can hold yourself. And if you do fall, you have to be able to get up, right? They have those commercials on TV and people laugh at, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. It's not funny. People who have long lies or lay down on the ground can actually break down muscle tissue in their hips. They can get pressure sores, kidney failure, and also it's fearful. It's awful to not be able to get up. And once you go to the hospital and you come back, guess what? You never want to fall again. So you start to limit your activities, or worse yet, your loved ones limit your activities, right? So it's important that we strengthen those areas and do what we can to avoid the frailty cycle. But safety first, right? So you should talk to your healthcare provider before you engage in 150 minutes if you're not exercising regularly. But what the blue zones would tell us is move naturally, right? The best activity is something that you're going to do. So whether you like to run, how about dancing? Who's going to the senior ball, right? So dancing, I love the hula hooping, swimming, and even in institutionalized settings like nursing homes, there can be exercise where you're doing this as a group, or an assisted living, or a senior center. So think about what activity you like and make some time to do it. So this is from Hippocrates, a long time ago. If we could give every individual the right amount of nourishment and exercise, not too little, not too much, we'd have found the safest way to health, right? So we've known this for a long time. So what's the role of nutrition in aging? It's pretty complex. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of changes with aging. So we lose the lean body mass. We saw the changes in muscle. Our body fat distributes. We can see that happening. Metabolism slows down. We have some changes, maybe in vision, hearing, taste, and smell. We might lose some teeth. We have a decrease in thirst sensation. So all of those can make eating a little bit different. We may not need as many calories, but we need nutrients. So high quality food, variety of foods, and thinking about some whole foods. Protein, fiber, all of that is important. So aiming for 3 healthy meals a day. As people age, a lot of people just have 2 meals a day. 3 healthy meals, fruit, vegetable, proteins, good fats, whole grains, fiber. In one study, people who followed this, kind of the Mediterranean diet, faithfully were 74% less likely to become frail. So all of these things accumulating make a difference. Back to the blue zones. So what they tell us is Hari Hachi Blue, which means eat till you're only 80% full, right? So this is a terrible thing to say before lunch, or maybe it's a good thing, I don't know. All right, so think about eating earlier, more slowly, sitting down, losing the TV where you just sort of eat and there's no engagement except with the channel, smaller plates. They also say plant slams, all right? 4 to 6 servings of vegetables per day. That's a lot, but eating nuts, limiting meat, and beans. Sardinia had fava beans, Costa Rica had black beans, Icaria lentils, Okinawa soybeans, and Loma Linda multiple beans. So I don't know how many people eat a lot of beans, but there's a lot of good fiber that helps with bowels. This is what works. Alcohol in moderation. All right. So recommendation is 1 glass daily for women, 2 for men. Right? Multiple potential benefits, but there's also harm. So if you don't drink, I wouldn't start just for the benefit, right? But you know, I'm lucky that red wine is my drink of choice, so I'm feeling very healthy with that. But again, in moderation. Social isolation and loneliness are risk factors for malnutrition. So socially isolated people may have a reduced appetite, eat fewer meals, have lower intake of protein, fruits, vegetables. They also may be less motivated to shop, cook, and eat. So We're all social people. Eating should be a social event. And then connectedness. So engage, engage, engage. If that's the one thing you gain from this. Meaningful relationships with people who share interests and values, belonging to a spiritual community, tuning into the times. So figuring out how to FaceTime, right? And use your phone and do things. If you're an older person, my parents aren't great at it, but we're getting them going so they can communicate with my kids. Keeping family first, and then finding life's purpose. The Blue Zones say the plan de vida, find your life's purpose. So this is a study from Harvard. So this is Robert Waldinger and his wife, all right? And he said in his study, the people who were most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. So this is the Harvard study of adult development. He followed the lives of 700 men, in many cases their spouses, since 1938. And there were 6 factors of predicted healthy aging. Physically active, absence of alcohol abuse and smoking, mature mechanisms to cope with life's up and downs. I'm not sure what that means, but healthy weight and a stable marriage. So good genes are nice, but joy is better. So finding happiness in your social relationships is really important. So plan de vida. So I challenge you, craft a personal mission statement. Commit to connect or reconnect with 3 people. Volunteer, find a hobby, learn something new, create a bucket list. I think a bucket list is wonderful. Tend to your relationships, find your purpose and what brings you joy, and then do it. So aging is an inevitable process, and I really think by embracing components of a healthy lifestyle, we're not going to be 100%, but these things really do appear to make a difference, and there is certainly the medical literature to support it. But I think if you do this and you also advocate for your own health, you have a greater ability to engineer a positive approach to aging and age with vitality. So here is your homework. 3 people to connect with. Tend to your current relationships. Commit to physical activity or to move naturally. Everyone go home and move naturally. Maybe we should all go home and dance like the wonderful man in that video. Fill up on veggies, fruits, beans, and grains. Find a hobby. Craft your personal mission statement. And find out what brings you joy. And then do it. So I'm going to end with a geriatric's wish. So in many cultures, it's considered a blessing to wish for a very long life. May you live to be 100. May you live to be 100 years with 1 extra year to repent. May you live to be 100. May the last voice you hear be mine. Love that. Good luck, good cheer. May you live 100 years. And I added, may you age with health and vitality. So that is it. I'm happy to take questions at the table because it's 12:11. So we are going to eat lunch. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Okay. A lot of information to digest over lunch. And as was mentioned earlier, you have an opportunity for tabletop conversations because the professionals in the house have a lot of information to share with you. And I know you have a lot of questions. I know those questions are just burning.